Hello and welcome to episode 48, How to Build a Property Development Business Through Good Relationships. Really looking forward to knocking out this fantastic episode with the amazing Bob Anderson. We're going to look at how you can grow your business through great relationships and the impact of negative relationships, so things you'll want to avoid. So let's jump into episode 48. Hey, welcome to episode 48 Property Mastermind podcast with Hilary Saxton, how to build a property development business through great relationships. But before we get started, giving away a copy of Property Millionaires Exposed this week going to Jed Prater. Had a great yak with Jed on the phone this morning. He's looking forward to joining our membership when we relaunch in maybe 6 weeks or so. So that will be exciting. In the post to you. Anyway, Jed, looking forward to that. You will be. And as usual, the amazing Bob Anderson here with me today. And Bob will be really unpacking the impact good and bad relationships have on property development. Also, just a bit of credibility around Bob, over $1 billion in developments. The man's not afraid of anything in every single state, in every single...
Only you.
Yeah, only me. In every single economy, all of those things. So he knows what he's talking about. Over 300 million in joint ventures alone. There's a lot. The bucket list is pretty good, pretty amazing. So you're in good hands by listening to his advice. And let's jump in. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for coming again and talking.
Yeah, sounds good. I like this subject.
It's a great subject, relationships. How to build a property development business through good relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty important. I mean, why? Why is it important to have good relationships within property development? What's the result?
Well, I think just everything flows better and faster and stronger. Like Steve
better,
Austin.
Faster, stronger. $6 million man.
$6 million. For those of you who are old enough to know who that was.
That was a lot of money when that series came out.
$6 million, I know. Now it's
70s
nothing.
Or whatever.
I think I'm capital raising 7.5 right now.
You buy a good house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in the day, you could just about buy the USA for $6 million.
Yeah.
Weird stuff. You're spot on. I think it's important to have good relationships, and we'll talk about the different types of relationships I guess you can have in a property development, but faster, stronger, smoother, less stress. Property development can be stressful from time to time. Let's not kid ourselves. Issues come up, things we have to solve, and that's okay. That's what we do. That's why we make the big bucks. We know how to do that. But anything that helps property development run smoother is a good thing.
Absolutely.
And I think good relationships, whether it's with investors or professional people we do business with, or within our own office, it's a great thing. Good relationships. And where would we start? Joint ventures, perhaps?
Why not? Because on the 7th of May, which is 2 days after this comes out, if you're in Brisbane, it might be too late. It might be full by then, I'd say. We're having an event for from 2 to 5, and then stay for a beer with Bob afterwards. And me, of course, I don't drink beer though. You could have a wine with me. And we will be unpacking joint ventures, which will be a fantastic way for you to understand joint ventures really and what's possible for you. And the thing is with what we offer, we're always quite real about the expectations that people can have when it comes to everything we teach and show people. So I forgot the question you asked, Bob. Did you ask one then?
Not yet. I wanted to talk about joint ventures, eh?
That's right. And then I went off on a wee tangent.
Oh, well,
let's talk about...
You. Well, you're looking forward to that event too, same as I am.
I'm so excited, yeah.
Yeah, for the price of a pizza. That's what I say.
Yep.
In fact, we spent more than that on a pizza a couple of weeks ago, and I forced you to have one. You don't eat pizzas normally. I forced you into it. Yeah. There you go. Anyway, that's off the subject. Joint ventures. Relationships. Well, there's a pretty important relationship, joint ventures.
And I suppose we could unpack that by saying, if there's two people in it, what role do they take on?
Yeah, good point. Because not only is there a zillion ways of cutting joint ventures, there's different types in the respect that, you could be doing a joint venture with an investor. Let's say we'll call that person an equity partner or a money partner, whatever you like. It doesn't really matter. One person's got the money, you've got the know-how.
We'll call it the smarts.
The smarts.
One's got the bucks, one's got the smarts.
It's bucks and smarts, that's what we want. And when you combine those things, you get a great development. But it could be something where you might have what I call a passive investor, let's say. And that could be an example. Let's say you're doing a joint venture with your dentist. Now, I know you've got a good relationship with your dentist, and
I've got your dentist.
Well, that's why you've got a good relationship. I've had that dentist since I was
And that's exactly it. It's about the relationships you have long term as well.
I never thought of that. Because the dentist you go to is the dentist I go to. I went to his father. His father owned the business before he did. His father retired and left the business to his son. His son's probably almost retired. And that's, relationships. His father was a great dentist. I kept going to him. His son was just as good a dentist. I keep going to him.
But the relationship was good. Had it been a rubbish relationship, you would not have got... The relationship wouldn't have carried on and I wouldn't be there now. Yeah,
exactly. And I hadn't even thought of it. But back to the subject. If you're doing, let's say, a joint venture with your dentist, now your dentist wants to keep doing what they do. They want to fill teeth, extract teeth, whatever they do.
Whatever they do, I don't like it.
They don't necessarily want to know all the ins and outs of property development. They don't want to get involved, boots and all, and do it. They're really most likely just out to make money. And that's a great reason to do something. So in that case, you as the developer would be doing all the day-to-day work, the management of the project. You'd report to the money partner, and they might only want to report every fortnight or monthly even. Now that's a fairly easy relationship as long as everything goes well, and you report and do what you're supposed to do. Pretty easy relationship. More than likely that partner, if you like, that money partner, equity partner, whatever you want to call them, your investor, the dentist, they don't necessarily want to learn how to do property developments. They won't want to do anything really.
No.
They're there to make money. That's a great reason to do something. So that's a reasonably easy relationship, providing you do what you're supposed to do, manage the project, report periodically, whatever it says in your agreement with them, it should run pretty smoothly. Where you can sometimes get conflict is when you've got two people. One might be the money partner, the other person's the so-called doing partner, but they both want to do. Now that can often happen, let's say, within our development community. Let's say you and I are running a workshop and two people there decide to get together and do a joint venture. You know, one's got a good chunk of money, the other one wants to do the work, but that's when you can get a little bit of conflict because they both want to learn more about property development, they both want to be involved in it. And so you can get this sort of conflict, first of all, about who's doing what. And you need to delineate who does what. Like you don't want to both be doing the same thing.
It's time wasting.
Well, time wasting. Where I have seen it work well within people within our development community is where they split the task. Now I'm thinking of a couple at the moment, two friends in fact, two lady friends who did quite a few projects. One was really good at the front end. Like she used to like to go out, meet real estate agents, look at deals, that sort of relationship building thing, meet architects. The other one was probably pretty good at that, but quite analytical. So she was much better at doing the due diligence and crunching the numbers, which is a very important part. And also she tended to do a lot of the project management. So they decided to look at each other's strengths and to divide it up that way. And sure, they communicate well with each other, but they had separate roles.
And you know how you started that conversation off? You actually said, and they did quite a few developments together. So what we're saying is how to build a property development business. That, like by looking at, if you're working with somebody like that, picking the part that is your strength. And you nailed it also, Bob, when you said it doesn't necessarily mean that the other person didn't have that skill. It just wasn't their strength. Like what are you very good at? Like I'm way better at cooking than you're better at eating. I'm better at cooking. That's just how it is. That is my strength. But it makes that makes the relationship work.
I can barely eat my own food.
That's true. But so if you wanted to grow a business by noticing and being aware of, having that open conversation at the start, what is your strength? And then having a line down like, this is my role, that's your role.
Yeah. And so it can become a little bit furry where both parties want to actually do the work.
Yeah, furry is a good word.
And that's when you really have to separate it. And ultimately, really, one should have the final say.
And how do you organise that?
I've done well over $300 million worth of joint ventures, and I've never put myself in a position where I could get vetoed. Because ultimately, if there's a bit of a stalemate, somebody has to make the final decision.
So how do you do that?
It's in the document. It's in the agreement.
You and I have never talked about that. That's such a good way to do it. I didn't know that.
You
just get me to sign that? I need to read some fine print.
A bit like a prenup.
It's fine print.
But that's important as well, is where the voting power goes. So, I mean, you're involved in a few joint ventures yourself.
One, I'm definitely just straight out money partner.
On the sideline.
Don't care.
Well, you do care.
I mean, I care about the result and I get the updates.
Watch, but you don't get involved.
No. In fact, the other day she sent me some pictures of... because there's a subdivision at the back and there's a house and she's done a renovation and she said, oh, can you notice what I've done? And I felt like I was at school having to go through and compare what it was, and Bob and I did it. And then she goes, I only get the elephant stamp, you don't get I don't get the star stamp because I missed one of the changes. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Gotta love her.
Yeah,
that's
doesn't
fun.
affect the outcome, because the outcome is you're a money partner, you're not participating in the day-to-day management, you get reported to. And the same, you're doing another project like that on the other side of the country with a good joint venture partner.
Yeah, I'm pretty good joint venture partner, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at being a joint venture partner.
Yeah, so...
I just work on my strength.
Yeah. And so I guess what I'm saying is potentially there can be more problems when both parties want to do the work, but that needs to be discussed, needs to be delineated, and it needs to be reflected in the agreement, the joint venture agreement. In case problems ever arise, you always go back to the joint venture agreement. So good relationships, with joint venture partners, and then, of course, you've got professional relationships, which are really important with the professionals that we do business with in property development. A good relationship is so important. I mean, sometimes, when it sort of runs off the rails a bit, it could be with an architect, could be with a planner, could be with an engineer, could be with anything. But good, I'm a relationship sort of person. I mean, you know that. I've got some very long-standing relationships with people. Yeah,
you're a lawyer. You've known, when you were about 18 when you met him, and you're clearly past 45, so you've known him, but okay.
Clearly.
But what I love about that is recently we've had to jump through a few hoops for a couple of mentoring students, actually 2 different mentoring students, probably even 3, and you've gone to your lawyer who went over and above what a normal lawyer will do on both occasions, on 3, well, probably even more that I don't even know about.
Well, that's because of that relationship.
Yep.
His mother was my accountant when I was a teenage entrepreneur.
So there you go. I bet that just gives
That's a relationship again. I had a relationship with his mother.
What is it with you and the family? Like a dentist?
Yeah, I know.
And now a lawyer?
Well, if people are good and I enjoy working with them and they produce the goods, why would you change?
And so the fact that you've got those strong relationships, it means that it makes it's growing your business faster, hasn't it? Another thing you do, Bob, is you pay your invoices not when they're due. You pay them the day you get them. Yeah,
I do. Because I value good work, good performance, good relationships. So if somebody's done a good job on time, on budget, a really good job, and they're not due to be paid for 14 days, well, why wait? I just pay them now. As a sign of good faith, as a sign that I really appreciate their work. And you'll be surprised sometimes that comes back to help.
It's hard,
like,
absolutely.
for instance, if they're busy and I need something, boom, straight away they'll do it. They'll push other people aside to do that. And that's not why I do it, but it helps.
So that's a great relationship to build. There you go.
You've got some good... I met some of the effect of some of your good relationships when we went to New Zealand, over 2 years ago now, to renovate one of your properties. And it was just before Christmas, and I said, this is not a good time to do a renovation. The industry shuts down 3 or 4 weeks, and we're just going to be stuck there waiting, 3 weeks for a plumber and 4 weeks for a kitchen, not really understanding the relationships that you have with people.
It was the 18th of December, and I said, no, we'll have a new bathroom in before Christmas. He's like, what? And I just go straight to my tradies that I've used forever, and send them a text, and they just turn up. It was mind-blowing, really, wasn't it?
I remember, who was it? It was Christmas Eve. I think the electrician came, and we had to get power disconnected because we were pulling the walls out and all sorts of stuff. We had to get power disconnected. We had to get some of the cabling rerouted, and I thought, here we go. We're going to go through Christmas and New Year with no power. And he rocks up on Christmas Eve, like 5 p.m, and worked in the dark.
one of my strengths.
Never seen it.
One of my strengths is influence.
And it was Boxing Day. The plumber arrives and starts doing rough-ins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, again, it's just those relationships. And like you say, paying immediately. Bob, how often did you and I sit and have morning and afternoon tea with the tradies, chat with them? Yeah. When it was hot, I'd go and buy them ice creams. Like just
coffees, all the coffees.
Yeah, morning and afternoon
all
coffees.
Of things, yeah. Sausage rolls, because that's what they like.
So it's really, that's relationship building, and it pays off. So, and what about the relationships that we have even within like Property Mastermind, the business of property development, education? You know, there's sometimes, well, look at Pete, the mentoring student who you are now building a retirement village with. Like, that's a life changer for him.
Yeah, it is. But he deserves it. So yeah, Pete did our mentoring program and then got on to a... it's a bit like if you go on fishing for, little brim or something and you get a marlin on the line. It was a bit like that. So Pete went fishing for something, ended up with a
marlin.
Potential retirement village on his line. And, it was heading west and starting to strip the line off his reel. There's a few fishing analogies for you.
Started dragging the boat.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah, dragging him around like the old man in the sea, except that he's quite young in his 30s. But... that's how that relationship started. So I joined him on that project, and the rest is history. So he's my business partner within that project.
But that starts as a relationship with somebody who, there's got to be a mutual respect, doesn't there, Bob?
Yeah. Well, it's in the mentoring program, which is a pretty good start because...
People are serious.
People are serious to be in the mentoring program, and we're seriously wanting to help them. And that's how relationships grow. We've had... good business relationships from, initially through the mentoring program, and personal relationships. Even when we travel down south, we end up staying at some friends, places, that's how it happens. It's relationships in life. It's business and it's, of course, personal. Sometimes business overflows to personal, or can go the other way too, of course. But, and that's relationship that Pete and I have, and that'll continue. We're looking at other stuff beyond that, beyond what we're doing. And, but professional relationships are important. Just for the sake of being able to get things done when you want them done, not having to wait too long. And also sometimes, like if you've got a good relationship and there's ongoing work, they'll do stuff for you, what I call on the punt or for free. I mean, there's lots of benefits in having good relationships, but ultimately it means good performance. It means, like you said before, faster, stronger, better, or whatever those words were.
It will build your business faster if your relationships are good. So the reason this podcast came about is because you had a meeting with somebody who had been a past student, and they rang and said, "Hey Bob, I'm up in Queensland, can I catch up for a coffee?" And so you had coffee, but he'd invested some money with people and he was upset that they had stopped speaking to him.
Yeah, never a good thing.
No,
when
and
you're dealing with investors.
Yep.
Communication is everything.
Yep.
And look, things go slowly, things happen, but it's really important that if you're working with investors, that relationship remains, and that in order to keep that relationship solid, it requires communication. You can't just disappear. If things are going a little bit off track or things are going slowly, or whatever, you can't just disappear. You can't not answer the phone. That was the problem that was happening there. Is that the investor couldn't get that communication. Emails weren't answered, phones weren't answered, calls weren't responded to.
And that gets stressful for an investor, because for some people, 100,000, 200,000, 300, whatever it is, or their super fund or whatever you're investing, if you are having no response or nobody's getting back to you, it's like, has my money gone? Because there's enough horror stories now.
Well, your mind naturally goes in that direction. They've got my money. I know it's in a project somewhere, and particularly if they can check on the project, see it's not advancing a lot or whatever's happening. It's pretty scary. Whereas the truth is probably nowhere near as scary. But just got to, keep that communication. But
your investors. Right. I mean that's another example of great relationships, because this guy has been an investor with you, hadn't he? But he came to you to chat anyway, and as usual, because you have a relationship with him, you're like, sure, I'll have a coffee.
Well, he's a former mentoring student. He's got a relationship. He's been an investor as well. Of course, I would. Yeah.
But you sort of, when you came home and we talked about it, you said, I've never let an investor down. I mean, even if sometimes things have gone slow or something, I've emailed immediately and put them in the picture. And how many of your investors, Bob, have come back and reinvested?
Oh, yeah.
So
often.
many.
Well, that particular fellow we're talking about there, he was an investor in a project, what I call seed capital investment. So there was 5 investors in there. I was actually in there myself, and there was 4 others with an equal amount of money. That was at the very early front end of a development, what we call seed capitals, before you ever have a development permit or anything. So it's early capital to really get things up and started and get development permit, pay consultants, that sort of thing. And it hit a snag in that council had a 180-degree turnaround and decided not to approve the particular project. Now, what that meant is I had to go to court. And I did, and I went to court and I won. But that slowed the whole process down. So these investors were expecting to get their money out at a particular time, not long after the development permit came out. Now, all of a sudden, that's delayed quite a bit by having to go to court. So I kept them informed. I explained what's going on. I explained what the problem was. I explained what I intend to do about it. And then I kept them informed as time went on, where we were. We're obviously, advancing, and eventually got to the point. And it was some time after I had agreed to pay them back their funds, some time later, but I paid them. And I didn't, because it was an interest rate return, I paid them for all that time. So, I mean, even though it went longer and maybe a couple of people were inconvenienced by the fact that they didn't get their money out when I said I also paid them interest for that extra amount of time. So they're still accumulating interest, even though the things are extended. And that's the right thing to do. If I've got their money and I've got it longer than I said, then I'll keep paying them interest. And I kept them informed it was going on. As a result, people have reinvested. So
I think the importance of people understanding that. So if you're going to be using other people's money, OPMs, then if it's just vital you stay in touch with them and let them know what's going on, the good and the bad. It's a relationship. You want a relationship of trust. You want a relationship of transparency, of honesty. It's like all relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep doing the right thing. It always pays off.
So in summary, Bob, you've had some great relationships. They've made your property development career pretty special, pretty epic, and ongoing. What would your advice be to, just to summarise to people around the importance of relationship, or what the number one thing you think is? Is there 3? What would be the 3 tips? Oh, sorry.
Well,
throw you
in. I think respect, which means respect for investors in that relationship. Keep it trusting, keep it honest. And for professional people, respect their professionalism, assuming they're doing the job. Now, with consultants, never be afraid to sack somebody or to look for somebody better. But I think respect, mutual respect, I think that's important. One professional to another, property developer to consultant, property developer to investor.
Yeah.
And choose who you do business with as well. Whether it's a joint venture partner, don't just do it because you need the money, because it is a relationship. And I think be discerning. Take your time to do due diligence on whether it's professional, investor, or whatever. And then having made that decision, you stick with it. And look towards nurturing long-term relationships, ones that you can repeat. I've had long-term relationships with builders, with architects, you mentioned a lawyer, 40-odd years. But I've also had short-term relationships with people where that experience wasn't great, and I've moved on pretty quickly after one episode, let's say. So, yeah, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to move on, but nurture good relationships long-term.
And good relationships can help your business grow better and faster and stronger.
And with less stress.
Yeah, and I just think, to cover off, Bob, you just almost said something vital there, is do due diligence on the relationships, on the professional relationships. Like do a bit of, don't just jump in because they sound nice, because...
or because they're $200 cheaper than the other one.
Yeah, not cheaper, and they sound nice because,
Yeah, and getting referrals, all that sort of stuff that you do. But yeah, No, that's certainly. I've been blessed with having some fantastic relationships, long-term relationships, professional ones, which have been good for the business, and some of that's flowed over into personal as well, and which is great, you know.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I think that's really good. Some really good information there. A few tips, no doubt, and just really appreciate your insights on how to grow a good property development business through great relationships.
You're welcome.
See you next week.
Bye.